I have yet another Sony SLHF900 that was serviced at another shop back in Toronto and wasn't tested until recently, only to find out that it doesn't work. So I get to go in there and see what's wrong with this one. So here's another SLHF900 shipped in from the same customer. He shipped me, this is a 3 machines this time. SLHF900, he says, prior repaired by AMI. Don't know when it was done, but tests only conducted in 2023. I mean, generally, if you have something fixed, you generally try to test them right away. You don't let them sit around for years. But tape inserts mechanism sounds bad. Well, they all make noise. They all make a lot of noise loading. That's just the way these machines were. No picture static, no beta hi-fi sound. Maybe has mono sound, meters display. After pressing play on tape, the buttons will not react. Rewind, stop, fast forward, power button, all are inactive. Must unplug device to turn back on to eject tape. Okay, well this one could be interesting. Let's pull the top off it before we try any tapes in it and see what it's doing. And this guy appears to be on the numerous ratings panel. That's why I've cut out his name, because you're not supposed to tell people if you're on that panel or not. It's something that is supposed to be kept confidential. But anyway, he recycles used paper and prints his notes on the other side of them. So that was kind of humorous. Well, humorous with that humorous comment. Okay, so let's pull the top off this one here and let's see what's going on this one. It's Beta Central here this week. 3 Betamax machines, well actually 4. And that other one that the front loading mechanism was broken on, I might get to that because the fellow that left me that one, he said just keep it. He's got others. So I may scrap one of my old mono machines to pull the front loader out of that to repair it. That's what I'm thinking. I'm leaning towards scrapping one of my mono machines just so I can save a hi-fi machine, right? I mean, wouldn't you do the same? If you had a hi-fi machine that was missing a part and you had a functional non-hi-fi machine that you could take a part out of and fix a hi-fi machine, wouldn't you do the same? Power this one up, plug in the video outs and audio out. The power button's working now. Let's load up the tape. Sounds like all the other ones I've heard of. Thump, 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 thump. It's usually this is getting loose. It's a plastic, it's a metal post going through a plastic bearing. And I got a picture on this one. What gives? It's working. Do I have sound? Doesn't sound like I got hi-fi sound. Well, let's switch it to hi-fi. Okay, it has hi-fi, but it's fluttering. That sounds like an alignment problem is what it sounds like. Okay, let's check the alignment on this machine. Yeah, it looks pretty bad. Yeah, it's terrible. Well, let's see why. First of all, let's just see whether the upper drum is nice and shiny like it is on a lot. Well, the upper drum looks pretty bad. We're gonna do a resurface on this one first because it is really quite shiny. So we're gonna see, it's never been done because we're gonna mark the drum so that I know where it goes, and we'll remove the hex key, remove the drum, and give this a cleanup because, well, it looks pretty dirty as well. Besides the fact that it's really shiny, as you'll see when I pull the drum off. It's bad. It's bad. Let's take a look. So first things first, we'll unplug it. I'm going to remove the top from the the guide keepers here. Don't actually have to remove these, it just makes it easier. And they're not that hard to reset. The alignment is, it's not critical, but you got to get them back where they were, because they do affect the position of the tape, but it's not a critical adjustment. It's when you're going to do the alignment anyway, it really doesn't matter, because they're going to come back. No problem. Get my hex keys here. What did I say it was? 2.5? I think it was a 2.5. Or was it a 3.5? 3.5 or 3. 3mm. Make sure that the heads are in a neutral position. In other words, you don't want the head chip facing over here, because when you loosen this off, it'll drop a bit, and you don't want the head to get damaged. So now we just undo the screw. And just lift off the upper drum. See how shiny this is, right? Not only is it shiny, it's, well, where's the dirt I saw? Oh, that's on the lower drum. There's dirt down here on the lower drum. So we can clean that while we've got it apart. But anyway, this needs to be, you can see what's happening here, right? This so shiny, it's like a mirror, and it causes the tape tension to go up. And as the tape tension goes up, oh, there's some dirt right there. Good chunk of crap on the drum there that actually scrape it off with my fingernail. Anyway, this causes the tape tension to rise and causes alignment issues and so forth. So let me go get the good old Comet cleanser. So we're just going to make a paste. Put some of this on a wet cloth so we can make a paste of it. And we're going to use that paste to polish or unpolish this shiny area of the drum. I've done this many times. It's a very, very common procedure that you have to do on these old Beta drums, because you can't get them anymore to replace them. We used to be able to buy the head drum and or the upper drum and replace it, but you're not getting a head drum now. And I mean, I never used to replace it. We used to do this. I used to do a couple of these a week when Beta machines were still pretty common, because the cost of replacing it was pretty high. I think the part itself was probably, I think, 60 or 70 bucks for the upper drum. It wasn't cheap, right? And people didn't want to pay, especially when it was an old Beta machine that was already old at the time, right? They didn't want to pay to put a lot of money into it. They just wanted it to work. So we would do a lot of these, take the shine off and give the machine many years more of life. Some would argue, well, you're removing some of the surface and the alignment's not going to be right, but we're talking microns, right? You're not really removing much, if anything. The tape has removed it by wearing when it polished it. We're just kind of removing that shine and putting the scratches back into it so that there's a small gap of air between the drum and the tape, which allows the tape to slip around it a little easier. Anyway, I'm going to work on this for a few minutes. I'll show you the results when I get done. It'll look like a new drum. So here's the drum after refinishing it. So I can reinstall it again. Make sure that the heads are in the neutral position, otherwise you could damage them. We just set the drum back down over top and put the screw in. I want to make sure that I get the alignment exactly as it was when it came out. That's why we put 2 scratches in here, so that I can get it exactly to the same point it was when I removed it, as that will make setting it up much easier.
You know, I've often wondered if any of the engineers that developed these things at Sony, if they're still alive, would have thought that 40 odd years later their Betamax machines would still be in operation. I'm sure probably most of the guys are long gone now, but if they're still around, I bet you they're amazed that some of these machines are still working.
These are starting to get kind of gummy. Plastic, it's breaking. Look at the plastics coming off of my hand. They're starting to crumble. I think they're made out of like a composite carbon type material, so that they dissipate electrical charges.
That's what this spring is that I'm putting on. This provides connectivity, electrical connectivity to the drum, the upper drum, which is grounded to the chassis. So that's to drain away any static electricity charges that build up on the tape and on the guides, on the pins that lock into those plastic, but they're like a carbon-coated plastic. The guides lock into that, so any static charges that get picked up on the tape will get discharged by those pins into that those or V blocks as they call it, and then discharged into the chassis. I just dropped a screw. Wonderful. I'm gonna have to shake the hell out of this thing to get the screw to drop out, like the last one with the piece of the guide that was missing that had fallen off. Had to shake that machine for about 5 minutes to get that piece to fall out.
Okay, now I can try it again, and we'll see how the picture looks on it now without doing anything else to it just yet. It will need an alignment, but we'll start out by just seeing how it looks before I do anything to it. We'll see how the alignment comes up on it. The alignment was really bad, so reconnect the scope to pin 3 and pin 5. Pin 3 is the RF point, and pin 5, which my probe is broken, I just use an alligator clip to clip onto pin 5. That's my trigger point. The alignment is the shits. So let's see if we can get it better. The adjustments, of course, down here for the exit side, and the entrance side is this one over here. I do see a dip. I'm going to clean the lower drum. There might be some debris on the lower drum. I see a dip. I'll show you this before I do that. I think there's a bit of debris on the lower drum that's pulling the tape away from the head slightly. See this dip here? There's a dip right there. And that is that could be just some debris right here. Could be just some debris on the lower drum. There's a bit of crud on that lower drum, as you can see. Clean all the guides while I'm at it. Okay, we'll try this again and see how bad it looks. That's probably, you know what, that's probably the bottom of this gear. Yeah, it's the plastic gear on the bottom. It's not broken, but it's the black gear underneath here is making the thudding sound. It's not slipping at this point, not broken at this point, but it cracks on them all. You can't get it. You can't get them. Okay, that's improved already. It's got rid of that big dropout. It's still not perfect. We'll tweak this, get it as good as we can on this tape, and then I'll put the alignment tape on. So, get my screwdriver. And I'm just going to do the guide here. That guide right there, and we're just going to see if I can bring it up there. I just brought it up. That's got the waveform a lot better, and it's got my hi-fi sound back. Still not perfect, there's still a little bit of a dip, but it's still a lot better than it was. And then this other guide over here, we'll do this one here, and this will do the other side. I'll show you the scope. So, as you can see, it's looking a hell of a lot better than it was a few minutes ago, because it was more like that. And now I'll go put the alignment tape in and set it to factory specs. Okay, that's the RF portion. I'm going to set the tracking control right in the dead center. And that's looking pretty good. I see a lot of interference in there. I don't know why that's there, but alignment wise, it's looking good. Right, it's square. So we're right where we need to be. That's looking good. One thing I would like to do on this one is I want to pull this loading motor out. I want to take a look at that gear. If it's cracked, the other one wasn't on the other machine. I looked at it, but this one here I can see what looks to be a crack on the gear. So I want to pull this out. And oh, not tight. Someone's had this apart. Yeah, the last guy. There's also a screw missing. There's supposed to be 2 screws in there. Maybe somebody already glued this, right? That might have broken before. It might already be glued, because quite often when they're glued, they make a chunk, 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 chunk sound. But what I'm getting at is this is the gear I'm talking about. Get a close up of it so you guys can see what I'm talking about on here. So the gear's got a tooth missing. It looks like someone's glued it before. Let's see if I'll pop it out of here. Get a close look at it. But it looks like it's been glued. Someone's already repaired this at one point. That's probably what was wrong with it before. And quite common on these machines that this gear breaks. And what we do is we glue it in place. It's got to get. I don't want to break this taking it apart. So I got to kind of pry these clips away and pull the gear down, pull the shaft down. Okay, take that gear off. We'll just pull this down and leave that there. So what happens is, yeah, this has been glued back on. So this severed. I've had these before. And now what he's hearing is, because there's a space here where the gear opened up, you can see where it was cracked, and someone glued it back on. Now every time it rotates, it goes dum 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 dum, and there's nothing I can do to fix that. That's just the way it is. So we'll put it back together and leave it, because it's not gonna hurt it. It's just gonna be kind of annoying when it runs. Every time it turns and it hits this spot here, you hear a thump 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 thump. Nothing can be done. Oops, yeah, that stays there like that until I drop this in place. Nothing can be done to fix that, unfortunately. That's just the way that it is on these machines. They are all very, very old, and I'm actually quite surprised that most of these machines are still working as well as they are, because they are certainly they're certainly well past their prime, that's for sure. I knew someone had been into there as soon as I opened this thing up, because one of the screws was missing, because there's normally 2 screws on here. And the last one I opened up too, the last one for the same guy, the SLHF900 that I just serviced, it had a screw missing on here too, but there's normally 2 screws. One there and one over here, and this had a screw missing. So that's on the last guy that serviced this thing. But they both were serviced by the same shop, so why does that not surprise me? There was a lot of, let's just say, less than qualified people fixing VCRs back in the day, because there was no regulation on this, right? Anybody could run a TV repair shop. Anybody could fix VCRs. There was no certification or anything. Anybody could start a business and fix whatever they wanted. That's one of the reasons that many of the companies fought for stopping the right to repair. Right? When you get when you get the I gotta reset this thing here. Gotta reset that. Okay. Let's just reset the mechanism here. Get this to run here. Okay, now it'll work. I didn't have that clipped in. Anyway, where was I going? Oh yes, this is one of the reasons why so many companies like Apple and stuff did not want anybody repairing the equipment except for their own people. And there are many reasons why they don't want people doing things, and there are many reasons why you as a consumer only want qualified people working on your high-tech devices like your computer or your phone. And that's because you have personal information on there. And companies like Apple and well, many others, but we'll just use Apple as an example because they're the biggest of them all as far as this goes. They did not want every Tom, Dick, and Harry working on your phone, because you don't know whether the guy's a criminal. He could be mining all your personal information off your phone and selling it on the dark web. You don't know that. It's the Wild West. It was the Wild West in the consumer electronics repair business. So many people were not qualified to do any work, and it's half the guys weren't even trained, right? I mean, myself, I had formal training in VCR repair because I worked for Sony. That's where I got my formal training. I didn't get it anywhere else. I went to BCIT, but I didn't study electronics. I studied electronics when I was in high school and didn't want to go down that road. It was the last thing I wanted to do was be fixing electronics. I wanted to go into television and film production, but that career didn't pan out. If I had waited another couple of years when Hollywood North started going, because that kicked in around 1984, 85 is when Hollywood North really started going like gangbusters, and they were making films and TV series and crap here, left, right, and center. But I got in, I tried a few years before really much had happened, and I didn't wait. I went to my fallback plan, which was electronics, which is not something that I really had much interest in initially, but I was convinced to do it, and then I just happened to land a job at Sony, and Sony put me on their Betamax course, and I learned everything about how VCRs worked in that year that I worked for Sony. The course was, I think, a few months. It was a crash course, but it was all hands-on. And then over the next 20 years, I took every possible course that every manufacturer put on and got my certification. And I've got a bunch of my diplomas from Sony sitting on the wall over there, just kind of shoved in behind my Miller Genuine Draft sign for all the different products. But again, but a lot of the guys doing this stuff were not certified. They were people working, that just learned that they trained themselves, and not that there's anything wrong with that. There was a lot of good techs that did well, that trained themselves, but just saying that there was a lot of people out there that, let's say, were less than less than perfect. And I used to see, we got to know which shops, the local shops here. I won't mention any of them here. I think they're probably all out of business now. But there was one guy that the guy was colorblind. If you can imagine that, a guy fixing TVs out of a truck, driving around and fixing TVs in people's driveway or in their home, and the guy is colorblind, and he's trying to set up the color. And we would get the TVs after he charged someone a small fortune, and the color was just atrocious. And then I would get it, and it would be like, yeah, we think the guy that fixed it's colorblind. Well, we thought it was a joke at first. We thought that we thought people were just, joking, saying the guy, oh, I think the guy's colorblind. But you know what? When you get a dozen of them in a month, and the color is so far out of whack, that you can't help but think, yeah, the guy must have been colorblind. It's like a story of a guy that my daughter used to date, and we'll call him Bitch.
His name rhymed with
that
bitch.
Was his name. Anyway, I forget his name. Anyway, but we used to call him Bitch. But here was a guy that, and I think this is going way back because she's 25 now, and she would have been like, I don't know, 17 at the time when she was dating this loser. But anyway, here he is. He's up to his eyeballs in debt, going to, I think it was Vancouver Arts School, taking up video game design, and he's colorblind. What do you think his career chances of designing video games are being colorblind? I would say probably zero, unless he was just going to do coding. If he was just going to write the actual code, then that's one thing. But if he was designing the actual graphics part of things, I don't think he would stand much of a chance getting a job in that field, because it's very visual, and I think color has a lot to do with game design. But I could be wrong. But anyway, he didn't drive because he couldn't pass the test, or didn't want to do the test because he couldn't tell a red light from a green light. So anyway, there was a TV technician that was around out in this area in the 80s, 90s that was exactly the same. I don't think he could tell the difference between red and green, because we got TVs that were so messed up color-wise. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I almost felt guilty charging somebody $100 to realign their TV just to make it watchable, because it was. I mean, I wish I had some pictures of how bad it was, but it was horrid. It was horrid how it was, and how the guy could try to tell someone it was passable and it was good, because it was. They had to turn the color down to 0 and watch it in black and white. Even that looked bad. Anyway, I'm going to let this thing run for a while. This one's got a pretty guard picture on it now. I'll show you the picture now that we've done the alignment. As you can see, the picture's absolutely perfect. Now, his complaint on this was that the buttons stopped working after he loads the tape, but that's not happening. I don't know whether maybe he had a remote control that was firing out signals, and the infrared sensor was getting locked up, or maybe an LED light bulb or something was operating in the frequency range of the infrared, and it caused the infrared to lock up, because sometimes that'll happen. So I don't know why the front panel buttons weren't working, but as you can see, the front panel buttons work fine here. We'll try the jog shuttle. Oh, where's my slow tracking? And there should be an adjustment here for still adjust. I know, the plasma won't be the best for stills. Oh, it's not too bad. Okay, slow motion. Not bad at all. Regular play. That should be double speed. And then also in reverse. Reverse slow. Reverse normal speed. And high speed. Okay, that's working. And then the dial on the front of my turn it one frame at a time. That part's working. I'll check the sound. This is the hi-fi soundtrack. I can't play this for more than a few seconds, but linear and hi-fi, it's working. Excellent. I think this one's done. Now I'm just going to let it run. It's been going now 8 minutes. No problems. I'm just going to let this one run and observe what it does over the next couple of hours before I pack it up. But I think it's pretty safe to say that this one's working. The noise he was complaining about, I can't do anything about that. But it's glued on, so it shouldn't be a problem unless it breaks in two. But can't do much about that. Don't have access to any parts. Maybe if someone's 3D printing these ones, you can get a gear, but I don't know how strong they are. I mean, I've had hit and miss results with 3D printed parts that I've tried in the past, and you know, so your mileage may vary, as they say. But this one here, I've glued a lot of these gears that have split, and they've never failed again. They just are noisy, and not really a big deal. I thought something was a little bit off when I pulled the loading motor out. Of course, this is a spare one, right? This is a replacement one of mine, which I don't want to sell unless I have to. And this one's not broken, but you notice on this one that the gear came off. It shouldn't, because the way that this is put on, it's locked in place by a ridge, but whoever put this back together and glued it back on, glued it on backwards onto the shaft. So that's why when I lifted it out, this one fell off. It should never come off. Just pointing that out. The guy that glued this glued it backwards. The bottom ridge here locks this in, so when you put the shaft through and clip it in, you put the gear on and put them both on at the same time, or put this one on first and then put the other one on, put the shaft through and lock it in place. And then this gear can't fall off. So this machine, when you remove this, that gear falls off because this is upside down. It's in backwards. Of course, no way to fix that because it's been glued in place. But that's okay. It shouldn't affect it. That might be why it's a little noisy, but besides the fact that the gear has got a split in it, it should be okay. Okay, this unit's been playing now. I've played this full 3-hour tape through and rewound it, and it's playing fine, and all the controls are functional on here, so we're going to call this one done. Thanks for watching.